Okay, back again. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon. What's your
Randy Stoppenhagen.
He forgot his name.
Well, I thought maybe one of you two were going to introduce
should
me,
have
but
introduced you.
I'm Randy Stoppenhagen.
Yeah, that was bad. That was bad on our part.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, so we're kind of doing this a little differently today.
Yep.
If it sounds a little different, it's because we're running wireless mics this time. We've been traveling. We're actually in Idaho elk hunting, so space was at a minimum.
Yeah.
So we did a little bit different, so we couldn't bring our podcast mics, but it should be fine.
Yeah, not quite the studio that we're used to, but
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I kind of like this studio
do too.
better than the studio at the office.
yep. A little bit better views probably.
Yeah. So we are here in Idaho right now. We're elk hunting. So we're technically 5.5 days in. So we're exactly halfway through the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So we scheduled 11 days to be here.
Yep.
And so we got here. We hunted the 31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
Yep.
it's the 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then we hunt through the 10th. We'll hunt half a day on the 10th and then get back to Boise and then fly out on the 11th.
Yep.
But yeah, so we're just going to kind of go a little bit all over the place today. Just kind of talk about how the hunt's gone so far.
Kind of like our hunting, all over the place.
Yeah. So I guess to recap the hunt so far, there hasn't been a whole lot to really talk about. I mean,
No.
it's been fairly slow. You know what I mean? It's definitely early.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I think we kind of knew that coming into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it was kind of crazy. We kind of had the most action almost kind of right off the bat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's kind of tradition. The first night up here, I always go outside of camp and let loose a few bugles, see
Yeah.
if there's any response. And sure enough, boom, we had one pipe off up on this ridge where that whole area right there is usually right behind us is where you usually get a response. Although last year we had one right here and then he ended up right behind camp one night. So yeah, and then the first morning we were out, boom, we had one fire off, there was some action, and then unfortunately you can't control Mother Nature, and we had a front move in, and of course barometric pressure drops, and they just hunker down and zip it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, that was kind of crazy for us. So what we've been doing is we've been hunting tree stands. Randy's been hunting this area for quite a long time, and he's really got it dialed in. You know what I mean? And there's this awesome ridge with this big long flat that these elk kind of work up onto or off of. You know what I mean? It's just a really great transition area that they seem like they're traveling through.
Yeah.
And so we've got, I say we loosely, Randy had tree stand set up, and so we've been hunting out of there. The first day we hunted out of that tree stand, and actually that first morning, it was kind of funny, like, you just never know how it's going to happen, and you feel like you look around every single second, you know what I mean? And like, looking around, like I'm set this way, and Nick's set off to my right, and I think you were putting on your jacket or
Yeah,
something.
I was putting on my jacket.
I kind of like turned around and was talking to you, and I was kind of looking around, then turning back and talking to you, and then we heard a snap, and I looked around quick, and just as fast as I could do that it was like a raghorn, like 5x5. I could see his legs, his belly, came into the opening, and then was gone. I mean, in just a snap. And that's how fast it can happen.
Right.
I mean, I literally, as I saw him, I was like going to reach for my bow, and he was already through. You know, he was just kind of,
Excuse me.
he was just kind of on his way. You know what I mean?
Right.
For whatever reason, came from there, and he wanted to go that way.
Yep.
But yeah, we heard bugling that first day, heard bugling the night.
I saw one.
Yeah.
But I had my back to him. I got up in my tree and I'm going through my stuff and getting everything ready. Okay, got to put my bugle tube here, and I get this, and I lift my bow, got my back to where I normally look, and I go to turn around, and there's a bull standing probably 25 yards from me, and I'm like, hey, and he was gone.
Yeah. So that was kind of the first day, and then actually the second day was kind of where it kind of got really, really crazy for you.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. We're not that far apart, but in the same regard, you're far enough apart that you still are seeing and experiencing a whole kind of different hunt.
Yeah.
And just right off the bat, all of a sudden it's just, I mean, not right off the bat, but as the morning kind of started to move along, you just kind of look up and all of a sudden here comes all these elk.
Right. I mean, those elk come up on the back side that was cut years ago, and there's a real narrow strip of timber that those elk use to get up onto that ridge. That's one direction they come from. Well, once they get up there, I call it the intersection. They can go left, they can go right, they can go across, and then they go bed down in these different draws. So the hope is that they either make a decision left or right. I'm hoping they come right.
Yeah.
These guys are hoping it goes left.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so I do some random calling, maybe to try to coax them over, but a lot of the times I'll sit silent.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, the second day I'm sitting there, and I forget what time it was, but I'm sitting there and it's silent, pretty quiet, unlike today where it's windy. But all of a sudden, up over that back side, here comes a cow, then a calf, then a cow, and then a cow, and then a calf. And I'm like, yikes. And they came in, I mean, they were literally 20 yards away. And, luckily, and this isn't a plug, but seriously, I spray down, I do the appropriate things, but the ozonics machine, they were literally 360 degrees around me. And the wind was this way, that way, this way, that way. They had no clue I was there. And all of a sudden, I saw what I thought was a decent bull. But then this just toad of a bull came in, and none of them piped off. Now the cows and the calves were mewing and chirping.
Yeah.
But the bull came in and he just stood 40 yards away in the best spot that he could stand. Unfortunately, I didn't trim that area.
Yeah.
And never had a chance. And he just stood there, and 10 cows kind of peeled off. And then I think, I don't know if they were forced up or what happened to them, but the lead cow, I figured she was the lead cow, because all of a sudden she changed her mind. She came back, but not all of them, just her and another cow, I think. And then the other ones, I think, vanished, but then they moved off and away, and then they ended up going back over the hill.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, kind of in
Dang
your
it.
life and then out of your life, just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was kind of cool for me and you too, because I mean, we were hearing bugling all morning, and I remember the one time it was a little bit later in the morning. One piped off, and we both looked at each other and we're like, "That's gotta be
That's
right
gotta
in
be
Randy's
close to Randy.
lap."
Yeah.
Like, it's gotta be. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool to have that when you're hunting with other people and stuff, because you
Yeah.
kind of are wondering what they're seeing and stuff. So.
Well, I think the big thing too is with elk hunting, especially, even when we're sitting in these tree stands, and then a lot of times in the evening when we're kind of, we're trying to kind of make our own luck and get out there and cover some country and call and do some setups. I said that to you last night. You kind of just have to make the best of it.
Yeah.
Like even with that bull coming in, you can't cut every lane. About the only way you can do that is if you just clear cut the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
You just can't cut every lane. And when we're doing setups, you just have to kind of make the best of it. You're like, okay, well, here we are.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think years and years and years ago when I first elk hunted, you feel like you're trying to find the perfect setup. And that's not really how it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to, like last night, all of a sudden we walk down this 2-track, kind of on the end of this ridge, and it was like, you know what, let's just try it. The thermals had switched, let's just see what happens. And we just kind of, Randy's leading, and we're just kind of walking through, and you know what, let's just do a set right here. This looks pretty good. Nice meadow, some dark timber. He set up so, okay, if I'm here and the thermals are going down, he'll circle around, you guys are here, this will be perfect. I mean, you didn't even cow call for a minute or two, and that bull just cranked off, like, boom, there he was. And then it's kind of like the chase is on, and you're like, okay, what do we do? Where do we go? And we kind of made a little huddle quick, and then we're like, you know what, let's just stay right here, let's try this. And then it was like, let's just get by this brush here.
Yeah.
And that's just what you have to do sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really crazy. Like you said, I think the one thing that I wanted to really talk about with this today too is I think there's so many connotations about elk hunting, right? You see so much on social media, you see so much on YouTube. Even as this trip was getting closer and closer, my little boy Jet, he loves YouTube. He's always looking up videos. So then he started watching elk hunting videos. A lot of the elk hunting videos you see bulls just screaming in through a meadow, or tucking their horns through branches and coming into calls. And it can be like that.
Oh, sure.
And sometimes it's not, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times they're only showing the 2 sets out of the 20 that they did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of times it doesn't work out. It's you're elk hunting, but it can feel like a big cat and mouse game.
Right.
I mean, heck, even yesterday, well, you know what? We sat tree stand in the morning. Let's try this other spot in the afternoon. And then, you know, luckily you've got some cell cams up here. All of a sudden, boom, cell cam lights up where we were that morning. Oh, there's elk walking by.
Right.
It's like, you know, it's just, but, so I think that's just kind of how it goes sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, the other big thing that I was going to say, and we talked about that in the camper this morning, you know, we're kind of getting to the part of the hunt where you have to start to really grind.
Yeah.
I think I kind of felt that from all of us this morning. We said, you know what, let's not set the tree stands. Let's just get out. Let's drive to a couple different spots. Let's bugle. Let's see if we hear something. Maybe we'll make a move. Went to the first spot, which just seemed killer.
Right.
Bugle, 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 nothing.
Yep.
All right, let's rally to a different spot. Get up in there, bugle, bugle, cow call, a couple sets, not a peep. And it can be at times a little, you know, disheartening, right? You're like,
Oh, yeah.
It can be discouraging. You're like, dang, man, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why aren't we seeing them? Why aren't we hearing them? And I think, and I was telling you that today, like, I'm like, man, Nick, like, we just have to keep grinding, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep on doing what you're doing. And you have to hunt as hard in the middle of the hunt and at the end of the hunt as you did at the beginning of the hunt.
Right.
I think you have a tendency to kind of go, well, you get discouraged. You're like, well, it's not going to happen. But you have to keep hunting hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to do. It's like the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I
Right.
kind of feel like we're in that right now.
Yeah. 100%.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are big whitetail hunters.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't do that much out here with that, but it's the same thing. I mean, yeah, you want to see deer every time you go out, but there's probably times you go out, I can get out for 4 hours and you don't see anything.
Yeah.
And then maybe the next night you don't see anything, but in an instant it can all change.
Yeah.
And that's what can happen up here. I mean, you can make the best call possible, you can rip the best bugle, you can have the best setup, but if there's nothing there to hear you, that's just the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time you go out, you still got to be on your game. You got to make the best calls you can. You got to make the best bugle you possibly can, and you still got to set up right.
Yep.
Because the minute you're lackadaisical, that's when he's going to show up, and it's not going to work out because you didn't keep the same effort that you did the first part of the hunt.
Right.
Well, and I felt that way yesterday, man. I was like laser focused yesterday.
Yeah, you were.
I wasn't. I mean, we were in the tree stand. We weren't having any conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, you look that way. I'm looking this way. Like,
Yeah.
talk to you at 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was like, I was like picking apart every leaf and branch. I can't tell you how many times I did the old like head bob dance. I was like, you know, like, what was that? You know, it wasn't anything,
Yeah.
but I was freaking out like it was. But I think that's the big thing too about this. And I think this has been fun for Randy and I as this trip has kind of unfolded is, you know, I hunted with you here in 2019. So that's 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I've seen some of this country and the scenery and the vistas and stuff, but it's been kind of fun to watch Nick's reaction, and which I think has been fun for you too, because I think sometimes you unintentionally kind of take it for granted, right? You get to see it, you camp here.
Sure. Oh,
but
yeah.
it's been really, really cool to go to some of these crazy lookouts where you can see, you know, the seven devils, and you can see Hell's Canyon, and you can see incredibly far.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know, like, what is that, 30, 40 miles away?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it's far.
Oh yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
Especially on a clear day after this storm came through, all of a sudden the air is crisp. It's very vivid.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can see as far as your eye can reach out there.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so that's been pretty cool. And I mean, I think that's a big thing that I think we have to not lose sight of, is the fact that obviously I would love to shoot an elk, love to kill an elk. But that's not 100% what it's about. You know what I mean? Like, there's more to it. Being able to be here and hang out with you, and like I said, you're a really good friend of mine, and being able to just be in this country and experience it, there's more to it than just trying to kill something.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, getting to cruise around on the side-by-side and getting to see some of these awesome lookouts and just cover some of the country, that makes it pretty rewarding too.
Tell them about the ring of tree, the rings on that tree that, because there's some
Oh,
big
yeah.
trees in here that were cut years ago,
Yeah.
and I've stopped but you saw a monster.
Yeah, yeah. So that is one of the big things that's a lot different than the last time I was here. They were logging some of this last time, but not near as much.
No.
And then between last time and this time, there was a fire.
Yep.
Was there a name for that fire? Did they call it something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't
Yeah,
know that. I mean,
whatever
I
it
could
is.
look it up, but that'd be rude. So
Yeah, but no. So yeah, there was a fire, and it burned a bunch of this country up. And so then they were already doing logging, but that kind of put it into overdrive.
right.
And so, I mean, even right behind us, like you're in a different camp than you were last time, but the camp you were last time, you go right off the back of that, and it was just huge, big country trees everywhere. And now you go out there and you can see these huge, big clear cuts, and then above that is a big burn. You know,
Yeah.
like we went into the back of this before where you couldn't see anything. Like where we hunted last time,
Oh yeah.
you just drove in there, it was just walls of trees, and then you knew there was ridges, but you couldn't see much.
No.
Now you go back there and it's just like one ridge after the next ridge after the next, and you could see 2 tracks, and it's a lot of nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll all grow back,
Oh yeah.
but it's going to take a while. It's just way different. But so we got it was the first afternoon. Yeah, the first afternoon we
Yeah, it
walked
was.
around on this 2-track, and we wanted to try to check and see if there was some water, and I found this huge stump. And I told Nick, I said, all right, man, let's count this thing up quick. And I got to what? Like 170,
70 something.
175 years,
Yeah.
which go back 175 years. I don't
Yeah.
even know what that is. I'm terrible at math. I'm doing it right here. 2023.
And give or take
Minus-
a few too, because the stump was kind of
That was
tore up a little bit.
1848.
That's wild.
And it could have been more because, like I said, I mean,
Yeah.
I was doing the best I could to count them as fast as I could.
yeah.
And
so
plus,
it could be,
towards the end, it was kind of broken up a little bit too. So
yeah,
like,
and those
it could have
rings
been
at
more.
the end, the rings were incredibly tight.
Yeah.
I mean, super tight. So it
Yeah.
could be 200,
Yeah.
at least 175.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
definitely.
insane to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just wild.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of changes. In fact, before we got on here, I was thinking to myself, this could be my 20th year or 21st or 22nd. Not any more than that, because I date it by my age going
Yeah.
backwards. Anyway, I've seen a lot of changes up here, and you got to roll with the punches. I mean, places. There were 7, 8, 9 places that I could go to. Hey, tonight let's go here, let's go there, let's go here, let's go there. And we give them all these crazy names. But a lot of those are gone now because of the fire, because of the cutting, because of whatever reason. So you have to delve somewhere else. You have to dive in, you have to figure this out, you have to figure that out. And just like where we're hunting right now.
Yeah.
And this may be the last year for that, because I went up to set some cameras and to set the stands, and there's tree markings and there's ribbons everywhere, which tells me that they're going to cut it.
Yeah.
And it's,
They're
you
getting
know.
the boundaries set.
yeah,
There may be, however that works, with some sort of sale or auction on the timber rights, and then boom, chicken, there it goes.
yeah. And that's, and so now that's off the list. So,
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I do, like when you guys come out, and you're probably so tired of hearing my stories, but I want to just share the history of this place, because to me, and it seems sappy, but I mean, if you hit a play button on my life, a lot of my life has been right here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my hunting life, because I do a little bit of whitetail.
This is your 40 behind the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a young, black, bearded guy when I came up here, and my daughter was little, and there's just so many memories, and I want to share those. And I'm sure after a while you're like, oh, again.
No, I like it.
I do too.
But every corner there's just, hey, this happened here, something crazy. I mean, and here I stopped to, I mean, not that, but there's just, and it reminds me.
Yeah.
And I want to share those things because this place to me is so special,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's-
and that's the reason that I wanted to come back, because I love that part. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's
It's
cool.
like, and I mean, and to kill an elk here would make it even more sweet,
Yeah.
know, but that
Well,
in of
let's-
itself is enough.
I think it's going to happen. I really do.
Yeah.
I have good confidence. I feel good. And one thing I wanted to share with you real quick, and I don't think I've said this to you yet, but towards the end, I sit, I'm always thinking, okay, well, maybe I ought to move them over here. Maybe I ought to do this. Maybe, okay, maybe we ought to go here. So when it gets down to crunch time, I run a tally. Okay, where have we been? Where have we seen the most elk? Where have we seen the most elk sign? That's where we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Even though your mind may say, no, I'd rather go over there, you got to go with where have you seen the most sign? Where have you had the most encounters? And you just put it all on that, bet the house.
Yeah.
And, that's the way I've always done it.
You had talked about that earlier in the week about when the hunt is over. It's funny, hindsight's always 20/20, but then you go, gosh, we had a bull bugling right over here, and then we went over there.
Yeah.
You're like, why did we do that? It's like, and I feel like, and we talked about that too, the fact that as the hunt goes on, you have to just let it kind of unfold. You can either kind of let the hunt unfold, or you can try to impose your will on how you want to do it. Right. And sometimes imposing your will isn't the right way to do it. You just have to let the hunt unfold. And it's like, okay, well, this is what's actually happening. We're out here, this is what we're experiencing, and then you fine tune and you adjust, and then all of a sudden you're successful.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not by coincidence, right? Like you're
No.
letting all these things kind of line up to go, okay, these are the decisions that we're making.
Yeah, bugling isn't working.
Yes.
Lost calf works. Okay, we got a response. Now, this is one thing that I kicked myself about yesterday. We were out in the evening and we did that setup and I backed up, and you're right, it was probably my seventh year, and all of a sudden and I'm like, what sound did I make?
Right.
So I got a little lackadaisical, because normally I try to go, okay, I'm going to create a scenario. Here's some calves, then the mother starts talking, then the mothers are talking and calves are interrupting, back and forth, and then there's one cow that might be getting ready for her cycle, so then I ramp that up, and that's a whiny, which then the calves don't understand, so they get spastic, but you need to remember, because all of a sudden when he pipes off, that's the sound he wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And I could not, so I threw like the kitchen sink. I was throwing everything. I was like, lost calf, lost cow, lost in space. I mean, nothing worked. I couldn't get him to pipe back up. So then we bugled, and we worked our way out there. And that meadow, there's some water, and that's the nearest water for those elk on that ridge. Is drop right down, and boom, there's water right there.
Yep.
And it just didn't work out. But we could go back there tomorrow, and he pipes off, and I hit the right note again, and he comes just a charging in.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you got to go back there, because we had an encounter. So
Yeah.
and there was good sign in there too.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. I made that comment to Nick after that first morning. We were walking back across this meadow back over to you, and I kind of joked with Nick. That's, I think, one thing that I've noticed different about Western hunting compared to Midwestern hunting. In the Midwest, you just kind of look out in front of you a lot, right? You're always kind of looking for deer. You're looking for whatever. In the West, you look down as much as you look out. You're looking for tracks. You're looking for scat, right? Like the ground can tell you a lot of what's happening. You know what I'm saying? And here, you definitely are trying to do that. There's been a couple spots where we've overwhelmingly. There's been a couple spots where we have overwhelmingly seen more sign.
Oh yeah.
Right? A lot more elk tracks, a lot more elk scat. Okay, you can smell them. Like, okay, this is where they are. Yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, well, we walked through this and we didn't see anything. We just saw moo cow trails, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if you're not seeing elk sign, then
the elk aren't there.
yeah, the elk aren't there. Probably a good time to check out a different spot. So, I think we just are trying to keep doing that as the week goes on. You know.
Yeah. Yep.
The other thing I would say too is, you know, when I was here last time, I was here for 7 days. I had 7 days of hunting. And I kind of felt like, I was like, man, I just wish I had a couple more days. You know, we were really starting to kind of narrow it down.
Right.
And this trip, it kind of worked out that we have a lot of days.
Yeah.
And so the thing I would say is if you can pull it off from work and from family and everything else, the responsibilities, if you can pull off a 10-day window to be out where you might be hunting, whether that's in Idaho or Colorado or Alaska or whatever, if you can pull off 10 days, man, that gives you a good chunk of time, just like what we've experienced here. You know, I was joking the other day, there's two things that don't do well in rain: camera equipment and ozonics, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to be really careful. And so that has taken some of our morning hunts or evening hunts out because we can't hunt in the rain.
Right.
Like I would go out in the rain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like,
would.
Yeah, I would go out in the rain. But if we're trying to film it and try and do everything we're trying to do, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that all of a sudden cuts it down a little bit here and there. So we're like watching the forecast. Okay, now we've got this good stretch of weather again. Okay, now let's try to capitalize.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
but, and I'll tell you what, that's the other thing I'll say is we're not exactly roughing it, right? Like, we're not roughing it at all. I wish I could turn the cameras around because, like, let's just go through the non-roughing it stuff. First, we're staying in a nice camper that's got heat, right? That's got memory foam mattresses. Thank you, Marcia, Randy's wife, right?
Yeah.
He's got a water pump. He's got a water heater. Which means we have a shower, right? We have a legit dugout outhouse with nothing but aspens behind us when you're doing your business, which is pretty awesome. I'm just saying. We've got a refrigerator. We've got electricity. And I tell you, the other thing that's been handy is that side-by-side. Randy's got this awesome Polaris Ranger. And I'll tell you what, man, that makes, if we didn't have that, we would be hunting within like a way smaller radius of where we're sitting right now.
Yep.
Because you just can't cover the country.
Yeah.
But with that thing, man, it opens up the possibilities of where you can go and what you can do. So, like I said, we've been pretty fortunate. We even get to watch some football games.
Yes.
And a generator. We got a generator so we can watch football. We got TV, a flat screen TV. I think we've all been talking about that Detroit Lions game and the Detroit versus
Come
the
on,
Chiefs.
Lions.
Yeah, Randy's a Chiefs fan.
I have been a Lions fan.
A Lions fan, sorry.
My whole life. And it's been brutal. It's been very disappointing year after year. So this is the year, man. Come on, please.
I think the minute we landed in Boise, you said something about the Lions game.
Yeah. I was like, hey, this will be great. Thursday night, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in front of my TV.
Oh, that's so funny. But no, like you said, it is awesome to have the amenities. And like I said, I've done it the complete other end of the spectrum. We're literally sleeping in a tent and wet and cold and tired and just hoofing it on your feet the whole time. Like I've done that too, so it's pretty awesome. And it kind of makes you, appreciate all this stuff a lot more.
Well, I am older and I can't do that stuff anymore. and that's one thing I would say to anybody watching this is that if elk hunting is a dream of yours and it's something you want to do, you got to do it because your body will get to the point, and I see that happening with me. And, I'm not going to get emotional about it, but I'm in the twilight of my elk hunting career. My body, I haven't been good to it with the other business that I do. My knees are going, my hips are going, and I just don't have the gas that I used to in my tank. So those years are closing down for me, and to be able to share it with friends and it just means the world. So if you have an opportunity or it's something on your bucket list to do, you got to do it. I mean, and like you said, even if you're successful or not successful, it's the experience of it. It's the watching the leaves change. It's the smells that you get used to up here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just something that will be with you forever. So if you got a chance, get out here and chase these things. It's a lot of fun.
Well, and that's the thing too, man. There's a lot of opportunity in Western states. Like we're hunting public land right now, right? Like if you can go to the state of Colorado and hunt public land until you're blue in the face. Yeah. A lot of Western states you can. A lot of states, just like this tag, the tag that I have right now is an over-the-counter elk tag. Mm-hmm. So there's opportunity, and you put yourself in the mountains in the month of September, and you're probably going to hear an elk bugle.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then start making mistakes.
Yeah.
And then those mistakes line up to experience, and then experience will help you become successful.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's really what it is. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
I did a lot of things wrong, and then it just taught me what not to do and how to start doing things right. Yep. And then all of a sudden you start narrowing it down, and you start, oh, holy cow, I just got in front of an elk. Oh, I just missed one with my recurve, and it just helps you get better.
Yep. Yeah, I spent a lot of years up here before I became successful, and then I kind of rode that pony till all of a sudden I had to change the game because all of a sudden that didn't work anymore. Yeah. So then you just can't keep beating the same drum. You got to go, okay, well, maybe I try this, maybe I try that. Boom, this works. Okay, then work on that and get better at that, and then all of a sudden that'll change. You know, I mean, it used to be back in the day when I first came up here, you could literally walk into a drainage and just rip a big nasty bugle, boom, 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 boom. It just lit up, and then it was chase them all the way back up and over the mountain. Well, those days are gone, and because of wolves and stuff. So then it was cow calling, just strictly cow calling. But then now you got to be really good at cow calling because they know when it's bad cow calling. So
Yeah.
you gotta mix it up. You gotta be higher, lower, move it around. You can still bugle. There is that magic time where if you catch him just right and you're within his 100-yard radius, you make him upset. He's going to come, and then I mean, like the other night when we got up there,
Yeah.
all of a sudden you heard a mew, and then you thought you heard a bugle, and probably did. I mean, all of a sudden it's like a switch flipped in me, and it goes back to the previous years of, okay, I'm going to go back here, you get over there, and then I'm going to start raking a tree, I'm going to break a bunch of brush.
Yeah.
I mean, that was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do a lot of that anymore, but I'll get out there, but then when I run out of gas, I need a day and a half to recuperate.
Yeah.
That's why I go sit in a tree stand.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I think that's the thing for me that really kind of keeps my engine running is the fact that I always think about when I guided, and I'd always tell guys, man, dude, listen, this can all change in the snap of a finger.
Ooh.
We can walk around one corner, we can go over one hill, you can have one afternoon, and all of a sudden you completely forgot about how many days you didn't see an elk and you're wondering if they really are there. They're there, and all of a sudden it can just go boom and it's on.
Yep.
And so you just have to be ready for that. And I think that's what we're just trying to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And even looking at the rest of the hunt, I think we've kind of been trying to, it's not that the days are dwindling down, but again, halfway through you think, okay, what do we do? What are we trying to do moving forward? I think what we've definitely seen, there's been a couple spots where we've seen a ton of elk sign.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Seen a lot of elk sign on that ridge that those tree stands are on. There's another spot where we set that trail cam where we've seen a lot of elk sign. So I think we're going to keep trying to kind of go back to that well where we heard that elk bugle last night. I think we probably end up going and trying that again, and then also just kind of seeing what unfolds. But I think we've definitely started to narrow down, okay, this is where we're going to try to spend our time.
Yep.
And just like you said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Hopefully we can get lucky.
Yeah. And if not, if you've left it all out here and you could, okay, I have no regrets. I went here, I went there, I worked hard, I got up early,
Yep.
and 4:30's early.
Yep.
And we didn't get back till 9:30, and by the time you cook something to eat and maybe you need a shower, you're getting in the wrapper at 11:30, and then 4:30 it's back up again. I mean, that takes a toll on you. But if you've left everything and you gave it everything you had, then if you're not successful, you can get on the plane and go, I gave it everything I had. That you can be the best at really anything, but there's so much luck. I mean, that you put yourself in the position, but man, there's still a lot of luck.
Well, there's a lot of luck, and I'll tell you what, when I used to guide, I said this right away to everybody. I'm like, here's the deal, man. We're going to do the best we can, but we can't control the weather, and we can't control the animals. I'm sorry. We just can't.
Yep.
And sometimes it is like, I'll tell you what, like, I guided for a few years and had an opportunity to help a lot of clients be successful and get in front of elk. I personally have never shot an elk, myself. I've gone on elk hunts. For whatever reason, I've just kind of been snake bit. Even when I told Tatum I wanted to do this, she's like, are you sure you want to go elk hunting again? She's like, she goes, Cole, you and I both know that elk are your bugaboo. And I'm like,
yeah.
I know they are.
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's why I'm doing it again. But they are. I don't know what it is. I just seem like whenever it's like if you had to flip the coin and pick heads or tails, I'm gonna pick wrong. Like, I don't know with elk hunting, but I still love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not all about just killing something. But yeah, definitely just trying to leave it all out in the field, and however it works out, it works out.
Right.
But yeah. And I tell you what, the other part that I wanted to talk about that I'm just going to bring up. I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. But, you know, the other thing we did a podcast a while back about that we called it "Don't Let Diabetes Control Your Life," right?
Yep.
And I think that one of the things as we were going to be coming on this trip that I never really knew when I first met Nick was that elk hunting was always like a huge dream for him to go elk hunting. And when he got diagnosed with diabetes, you almost kind of felt like that dream was like unattainable, unreachable.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, that's in my rearview mirror now. And so I think this whole trip has been pretty awesome. And I feel like that's been a perspective that I've been trying to keep in mind as we've been going through the fact that I kind of feel like no matter how this hunt turns out, like, you know, we're winning, you know,
Yeah.
because you're getting to be here and you're getting to experience this. And I think that, but with that said as well is I think we are within even that part of it, you know, you know, the harsh reality that sometimes there is stuff with your diabetes that you just aren't going to be able to do.
Yeah.
But I think it's not about focusing on what you can't do, but it's focusing on the things that you can do.
Right.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Like you've been definitely having to adjust to the altitude,
Yeah.
the elevation, and what are we at, like 6,000 feet?
Yeah,
here at
we're
least?
about 6,000.
Yeah, so
Somewhere
6,000
we're
feet.
60. Like over on the other side, we were at 62 this morning.
Okay. Yeah, so 6,000 feet, you know, we're not getting a ton of sleep, which doesn't help you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, but just trying to figure out the happy medium of how we work through all that.
Right. Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's been, as a whole, it's been going pretty good, I think. It's like you said, like, I've been loving every second of it still. I mean, the diabetes has been kind of a headache a little bit, but it's still just amazing being up here. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. Like, it's pretty cool waking up and knowing that you could experience something that you've never experienced before. You know, whether it be a view that I haven't seen where Randy's going to take us or an elk coming in. You know what I mean? And so it's been really fun for sure. And it's been awesome so far. So, yeah.
Yep. No, it's been good. Yeah, I'm excited to see how the rest of it turns out.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it turns out well. We got a bunch of ice over there we need to put the elk meat on. I mean, I can't tell you. I was telling these guys when we were dragging those big, heavy coolers over there with the ice in it, I was like, you guys, if you could envision how much ice is laid on this ground, because there's a lot of years I'm not successful.
Poured it out of
And
the ground.
I mean, it's $60 this time, and then I come back up and it's $60 more. That's $120 worth of ice. That's why these trees are doing so well. I've helped to water them over the years.
Yeah, that big ponderosa back
Yeah,
there.
he's happy.
He's loving it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I'll tell you what, I think that's good enough. I think we just end it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, thanks for listening. Another podcast in the books. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
I'm Randy Stoppenhagen.
Thanks for listening. Like I said, if you happen a chance to get out there, go elk hunting. And we'll have another podcast after this with a little bit of a recap and hopefully a pretty killer story to tell you.
There you go.
Yep.
All right.
Done.
Done. The end.
That was good.